On this episode of the After the Timeout podcast in partnership with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association, we welcome Shay Boyle, president of Notre Dame College Prep and former collegiate assistant and high school head coach. We talked to Coach Boyle about marketing your program, selecting the right job for you, looking at athletics as an administrator, and building your resume. As always, thank you for listening to the After the Timeout podcast. All right, so we start every segment with the opening tip, and we wanted to kind of go through your journey, right? Because you've had a lot of different experiences with the business world and then the college coaching, the high school coaching. Now, obviously, the president of Notre Dame High School. So we kind of want to ask you along that journey, kind of what factors went into kind of taking that next step and moving on to your next thing. And, maybe some of those, why you chose to do that, whether it had been personal, whether it was looking for something else, a different challenge. And then was it like any place harder to leave than another? Was there something that you're like, oh, man, this is a hard decision?
Yeah, well, guys, I appreciate the opportunity here. Great to talk some ball with you. It's not as forefront of my current job anymore. So any opportunity I can get to talk hoops is awesome. You guys are doing a great job with your podcast. I'm really glad I found it and keep up the great work. But yeah, my coaching journey has maybe been a little bit more atypical in some respects. But I'm from Chicago, born and bred. I grew up on Chicago's northwest side here, Our Lady of Victory, Weber High School graduate. And I went on to the University of Notre Dame and tried to figure out what I was going to do in my life. And I was a double major in business, computers, and came out of college with great intentions of the business world. I worked for a company downtown called PricewaterhouseCoopers for several years and traveled all over the world doing system consulting, IT work. But something in the back of my mind always kind of called out to me for coaching. And, it started as kind of a smaller passion. My cousin was a head coach at Our Lady of Victory Grammar School and said, hey, I need an assistant coach. What do you think? And I said, I'm busy running around the world here, but let me give it a shot. And, just that seventh grade experience kind of got me hooked. And from then, just kind of was a interesting progression through, now it was my summers, going to work camps. I was taking my own vacation time to go to Duke and go back to University of Notre Dame. And, I was doing all these things in my free time that kind of led up to me getting an opportunity at Notre Dame High School a long time ago before I even thought about working in the high schools. I met Coach Dennis Velasco. My brothers were both at Notre Dame at the time, and he said, I need a scout. Would you be interested? And I said, Denny, I'd love to do it. And you talk about learning the game. I'd encourage any young coach. I know it's different these days with scouting, but Dennis Velasco had me meet him at Joliet Catholic pre-GPS days. I could not find the gym. I was all excited on a Friday night. I drove from downtown Chicago to Joliet Catholic, and I sat with Coach, and he said, you got the offense, I got the defense, and here we go. He gave me a 30-page packet, and I watched this guy stencil every single play from memory, and I was writing faster than I could imagine. He kind of taught me how to think through the game, and then that's what I did for him. I went everywhere, all over the state of Illinois. We had a great team that year back in 02, 03, I believe it was, and just a little reference. I would scout a game. I would find a payphone in the lobby of whatever game I was at, and I would leave him a voicemail at my current number, actually, at Notre Dame, strangely, and I would let him know how the game went. And then I'd write up my report that night. And, this became a passion of mine, and we kept winning and winning. And, I fell in love with the process of scouting and kind of getting those guys prepared. And I was kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Like, none of those kids really knew me because I was working, traveling. I didn't really even go to practices very much. I'd kind of drop the reports and drop my phone calls. And then towards the end of the year, I got a little bit more involved. But I was hooked after that year. I knew this is what I wanted to do. And, it was not easy to leave a job at PricewaterhouseCoopers to become a college coach. And that's what happened the next year. I had met Jim Weitzel, who was the head coach at Lewis University. And I went out to Lewis kind of on a hope and a prayer. And Coach was very honest with me. And I said, if I'm ever going to do this, this is the time to do it. I was younger. I was single. I was, kind of living in a apartment I could get out of a lease at the time down by Wrigley Field. And I said, I got to do it. So I made the jump into full-time coaching 0203 out at Lewis University. And, we had 2 great years out at Lewis. That was just coaching 101 every single day, full-time. I was getting my master's degree. I was doing every possible job for the program, and we were crushing it. We were winning a lot of games. And those 2 teams that I coached out at Lewis with Jim Weitzel were 2 of the best I've probably ever been around. And that led us Coach Weitzel got the job at Loyola University. So about 24 years old, 25 years old, I was a Division I assistant coach, and did not see that coming from my days at OLV and scouting for Notre Dame just a few years earlier. And we had a great 4-year run at Loyola. And then, I had to make that decision kind of long-term. College coaching, you're only as good as your record. And, back then assistant coaches didn't really have contracts. And my wife and I were just thinking about starting a family. And, so I had to make the pretty tough decision to kind of go the high school route. And I had an opportunity pop up at Old Gordon Tech High School. And, being a Weber High School grad, I knew a lot of the guys at Gordon, and I knew the tradition and the greatness of their basketball program. So I'd say, guys, it was really hard to transition out of the college world, because I knew where that job could have taken me. Sometimes I think about it, and there's a lot that you love about college, and there's a lot now that's changed as well. But going to Gordon Tech was a great 4-year experience for me as a head coach. That was my first head coaching experience, and then we found a lot of different success there at Gordon Tech, and I was really proud to kind of put our stamp on it and kind of get that thing going again, because it needed a lot of work at the time. And just had great relationship, great players there. And but then kind of my professional side of the house, there was an opportunity that had opened at Notre Dame College Prep in Niles, and they recruited me pretty hard for this position to become the director of enrollment. So I was able to leave Gordon Tech after 4 seasons, 4 years, and now I'm entering my 11th year at Notre Dame and my 3rd year as president of the high school. So not the route I ever probably had imagined or dreamed of, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And being at the high school level is where I want to be, and I definitely made the right call. And just the relationships, the experience has been unbelievable. So a great roundabout journey through the coaching ranks. So you hear a lot of stories like this.
Well, and that's always that's why we kind of ask the question to a lot of our guests, because that's one of our favorite things, because every coach has a story, right? Every coach has gone about it a different way and been these different places. So we're gonna rearrange here a little bit. You mentioned scouting reports and sitting there taking a 30-packet note, and obviously, along the way you probably changed, right, some of the things and how you scouted, and you found your own way. In your scouting reports, and when you're doing that scouting and looking at things, what are some of the key things you looked at, and then maybe how did you change your view on scouting reports kind of as you went through your career and had conversations with your different mentors and head coaches?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say, every coach I've worked with and for has been different. And I think that's pretty consistent across the coaching landscape when it comes to scouting. Again, Coach Denny Zelasco, he's probably the most detailed human being I'd ever come across in my coaching career to this day. And but again, as a young coach, I think the temptation is to sometimes cut some corners and maybe not get in the weeds a little bit in terms of the X's and O's. But if you want to learn the X's and O's of basketball, scouting is probably one of the best ways to do it. Just the film study. Just back then, it was a really big deal to go out and live scout. And we didn't have any of this technology. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm not that old, but I sometimes I feel old when I think about the things I had to do. Calling on payphones, and when I was a college coach at Lewis, we could actually drive to go live scout, and we would drive hours and hours and hours. I mean, I went to Rensselaer, Indiana, through back roads of Romeoville countless times to see anybody that came in to play St. Joe's back in the day that was on our schedule. And I even brought my wife a few times against her probably better judgment. But the only time we were able to see each other when we were dating is to have some scouting trips. But as I got further in my career at Loyola University, working with Jim Weitzel and at Lewis, I mean, Jim was a guy, he wanted to know everything. I mean, he wanted to know every single detail, every call. I mean, I can remember, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sessions with our coaching staff where literally we had our ears up against an old computer screen trying to make out what the other coach was screaming at audible levels as high as the hotel could go, just any advantage you could get. And so scouting to me became, such an advantage. And I think it's all about in the way that you present that information to your players. It's really important that me as an assistant coach at the time, and as a head coach, I wanted to know as much as I could, but players learn differently, and there's no way we can expect our players to know what we know going into the game. So I think the key to scouting is you have to be creative. You have to be creative enough to give that information that you think your players need to know to take away the strengths of your opponent. But I think the trap of scouting sometimes is everybody puts so much effort on taking things away that you don't think about how are we going to hurt our opponent with the information that we have. We have to be aggressive against it as well offensively. It's great defense. We want to take everybody out, but what kind of plan can we put together as a staff to go after our opponents as well? So that was kind of the double-edged side of scouting. I really got into that, and I think the adrenaline of kind of seeing things happen as you've I always say like an actor becomes their character as they prepare to to be in a movie or in a play. I think it's the same way as a coach. I always try to find myself kind of thinking about the opposing coach all week. What is he going to do in this situation? I know what they're going to do. When my head coach asked me that last timeout, what are they going to run? I'm going to be able to tell them, hey, here's 2 or 3 things we got to be ready for, and that breeds confidence. And I think with my role as an assistant coach, I knew my players would always trust that I would always be ready when it was my time to shine as the scout for a particular opponent. And you talk about learning the game of basketball from scouting. One of my scouts at Loyola University was Butler University, and that was Brad Stevens was an assistant, and you talk about having to figure out one of the most complex, multifaceted offensive systems. My first time I scouted Butler, I had some plans with my wife, I remember I made, and I didn't do that very often during the season. And as I dug into the tape, I just called her and I said, listen, we got to cancel the plans. I'm going to be up all night. Like, these guys run 10,000 sets, and, it's just unbelievable. But scouting Butler for all the years I did, I became them. We had a huge upset of them on ESPN. They were nationally ranked, and, just the way our guys would buy into that information was great. So you got to have that trust. You can't weigh your players down with scouting either. I think that's a big trap that I think I kind of fell into younger. I want to give them everything. Hey, this is what we're gonna do here, and guys will tune you out. But when they know you're giving them what they need to be successful, it's going to help their game, and it's going to help us win. I think that's the line every coach needs to find.
So I think to build off that, we've discussed this with a few other guests, and Todd and I have partnered now with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association, and we've talked to a couple people about different things with just the coaching landscape and the profession at all levels. For you, how can we continue to kind of grow the young coaches? Because, I know you're not in the game directly, but I'm sure you've seen, the trends of so many coaches are leaving the profession. Last year, Todd and I had a conversation because there was like 30 head coaching openings between boys and girls. So, how do we continue to grow the profession and kind of mentor those young coaches?
Yeah, it's critical that we, have as much youth in the game as possible. I definitely see it in my role as president. And, even when I was a head coach at Gordon Tech or assistant coach along the way, there's a lot of young people out there that want to explore the possibility. And I think it's not until you kind of put your toe in there that you really understand what coaching is. And I think from the outside, everybody sees the Friday night lights. They see the big tournaments. They see the Twitter and everything else. It looks magical, right? And I think it's not until you get behind the scenes and kind of see what really goes into preparing a team for any game, the amount of hours that a coach should be spending, scouting, practicing, walkthroughs, strength conditioning, extra shooting, all those things. But, I think that one of the traps, I think, in today's game, maybe a little bit more is, especially at the college level, guys are getting hired because who they know. It's not necessarily what they know. They can bring a player, or they can bring an AAU contact. They're looked at as, hey, that's a guy I want to bring in. Where I think a lot of staffs have struggled is they may not have guys that, are more proficient sometimes in some of the other areas needed on a staff. I think that's what makes a great staff. You got to have balance between X's and O's. Scouting, as we talked about, recruiting is the lifeblood of any team. So you got to have guys that can bring guys in there. But, I was fortunate. I mean, I think I fall in that bucket. I had zero AAU contacts back then. All I had was a work ethic and a desire to be a college coach because I was good at player relationships. I could get along with people. I listened. I was smart. I understood the game. I played the game. But sometimes guys just got to take chances on young people that they see that have that dedication, give them an opportunity to shine. And I certainly was able to do that at Gordon Tech. I think the best thing I ever did there is I hired the best staff I ever could have possibly dreamed of, and that was kind of trial by error in a lot of ways. I had everybody want to be an assistant coach, and I gave some people some chances, and they didn't show up, or they couldn't make it out scouting, or they couldn't do the things that we needed to do to be successful. But my advice to the young coaches out there: just keep showing up. Any head coach is going to want somebody that's in their foxhole that, hey, I'll coach the sophomore game and I'm going to stay for the varsity game. I'm going to coach the freshman game. I'll go out scouting for varsity game. I mean, you got to kind of that 6-7 month life cycle of a season. You just got to eat, breathe, and sleep basketball for you're a younger coach trying to move up. And and don't be embarrassed to say, hey, I am the freshman B coach. That's where you're going to get the best experience. You got to get some head coaching experience somewhere, whether it's AAU or high school. Like, that is just unbelievable to be in a program that has an established head coach that you can just watch from afar and have a staff of guys. Especially I'll speak to Notre Dame College Prep staff. I mean, the wisdom, the talent, just the coaching from top to bottom that we have is pretty incredible for a high school program. And if I was a young coach coming in, I'd be there all the time, just kind of soaking it in, and any opportunity that you can get to get out there and network and do those things as a young coach, that's what needs to be done. And high school is a great way to learn the X's and O's, because I think a lot of people too fall in the trap. Hey, college coaching is very glamorous, and it can be in certain respects. But the thing that I found when I switched from college to high school was just the amount of time that I could work with a player in high school was infinitely more than I could with a college player back then. We used to only get, I think, 2 hours a week to do player development. And the whole summer I couldn't even rebound a basketball for a guy that wanted to shoot. You couldn't do things on the floor. Those rules have since changed a little bit now, but to actually work with a young man on a player development that wants to go to be a college player, wants to be a varsity player, that's unmatched in high school. That's what I would tell a young coach too. You got to double down on player development and establish those relationships, that trust with the players, that, hey, I'm a guy that's here to make you better, and I'll be there at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 10 p.m., whenever you need me to be there. Let's get in the gym. Let's work out.
All right, so I want to build on that a little bit, and you talked about some of the skills a coach needs to have. I want to go outside the box a little bit, right? You're obviously in your president role. You've done the IT, things like that. What are some, I guess, newer 2022 skills that will help teachers and coaches, right? Because a lot of times, they're in the school, they're working on academics, they're doing all these things. Like you said, the college level, we have NIL now, we have transfer portal. That's a big thing. High school, there's a lot of different things that have come about. I feel, especially since COVID, the landscape's changed a little bit as well. So, what are some of those outside the box skills that you think will help coaches be successful?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key to any successful coach is you got to be committed to being a lifelong learner, and you can't stay set in your ways. I mean, the game has changed at every level, but from the college level, I have a lot of friends still in the college basketball world, and sometimes I kind of smile secretly knowing that I don't have to deal with NIL stuff right now. We have our own version of the transfer portal, I guess, in Illinois, but for high school, but nothing like college. I mean, it's just, again, it's not been too long since I've been part of that world, but everything has really changed. And I think that's cost a lot of people that joy of coaching in the college world, for sure. Having to worry about kind of restocking the team every single year and the threat of everybody leaving at all times. But in terms of, I think, of the high school, some of the skills I think coaches that you guys have probably seen is, I came from more of a technology background, and I think, for me, that kind of set me apart when I came into the college coaching world, because I was a guy who knew how to turn on the computers. I was a guy who knew how to do the email. I could do graphics. I could promote our program back with kind of pre-Twitter days. I knew how to find information. So I think technology has definitely played such a big role in coaching. And we talked here a little bit about scouting and, how the game has changed. I mean, those are guys on staff that are needed. The power of huddle, the power of all the systems that every college coach has now to just pull up plays in a second's notice. And the time saving nature of that is just unbelievable. And I know staffs have really grown in numbers and size as well. So I think, anything a coach can do to stay current on the technology, current trends, all the analytics. I mean, everybody says the word analytics all the time, and everybody's supposed to know what that means. But I mean, there are just so many tools at a coach's disposal now. You have to decide to use them though too. You have to be proficient in them. And I think the staffs that are able to be a little more tech savvy for a lot of different ways, they find a lot more success. Saying that, I think, social media has been such an important part of any program's promotion. I think, having social media skills, I think, is definitely an important one. I know there's a lot of coaches resistant to getting to that world to kind of self-promote their program, but that it's not going away. So I think it's if you can find a way to have some fun with your program and have some of those tech skills, I think people love to see coaches on there, and as long as things are handled the right way. And I think a little bit old school, but communication skills. I think you mentioned kind of some things that happened after COVID. I mean, our guys, our young kids, they're communicating in a lot of different ways, and I think a lot of kids, they're looking for those relationships again. And I think coaches that can establish relationships and have the ability to communicate with their players, with their coaching staff. And one thing I always took a lot of pride in, I think, is a great way for coaches to kind of learn their campuses when they take new jobs is you got to have the ability to communicate with people all over campus, from administration to academics to tutors to maintenance staff to the marketing staff, sports information people. I mean, you want to be that person that people trust to go to, and you can bounce into different meetings and different parties, receptions, and that's going to kind of build your coaching resume up in some ways that have really maybe nothing to do with basketball, but you're seen as a great communicator on your campus. But I think the coaches that just continue to learn, I think that's just really important. You got to get yourself out there. You got to talk to people. The days of going to clinics maybe have changed a little bit as well. But, to me, going to a basketball clinic was the best way I could meet people. I coached a lot of college camps, as I said, and I think it's what you do with that information. Like, you got to bring things back to your head coach, when you're out there meeting with people. It might be one or two ideas, but that ability to communicate back, to retain information and make your program better, I think is just such an important part to being a valued member on any staff.
So you actually let in, and Todd and I were just kind of talking about, especially with you, we wanted to hit on just different things with marketing and networking and those things. So let's start first with the hiring process. So, you're a coach, you're looking for a new position. I think a lot of times, especially young coaches, they're just happy for that first head coaching job, and they'll kind of take any job. But even for that new coach, that experienced coach, you're looking for a new position. What are the kinds of things that a coach should be asking when they're looking for that new position to determine not only is it a right fit for the school, but is it a right fit for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think as I reflected a little bit about my journey through coaching, I think that is an area that I probably, I jumped into probably almost every job I had. I jumped in very quickly, and I did not do the analysis that I probably should have in a couple of different stops. But I was just so excited to coach, and I was just so excited to have somebody say, "Hey, we'd love to have you." I'm like, "All right, well, let's go. We're gonna make the big time where we're at." And I think for me now, kind of looking back in my current role, what I would advise people to kind of look at is, you got to make sure you're going to a situation where you're going to have the support of the administration. and that's got to be top to bottom. If you're looking at a head coaching position out there, you need to make sure you're going into a school situation. I'll speak as a high school coach, but that administration support, your athletic director support, your principal support, booster athletic club support, faculty, staff. You got to make sure that people want you to be there and they want you to be successful, because if you're fighting against your own school to be successful, you're going to be miserable, and it's going to show right away. So I think the coaches that can find that level of support, they enjoy being there. They enjoy putting in that work, because it is an inordinate amount of hours that a coach is going to put in. I know what we pay coaches for, and I know that is just a fraction, a mini fraction of the actual time and effort that goes into being a successful high school or college coach. And there's a lot of things that go into it, but at the top, that's got to be the support level. What type of staff are they going to allow you to hire? I think for any head coach, the most important decision they have to make, and they will make, is the staff that they surround themselves with. And sometimes I know schools will say, hey, here's your staff. These guys are already here. They're not leaving. That's up to you to get along with them. When I went to Gordon Tech, there was basically zero staff left. I had to rehire a couple guys, which I got very lucky for, but I had to go out and hire every single possible staff level member at every level of basketball. And as I look back to starting at Gordon Tech, we didn't even have enough players for a sophomore team, and those are probably some of the things I should have researched a little bit more. I was in a place of transition, and I knew that there was things I was going to have to change, but I guess you're always maybe a little more surprised than you should be when you take a new job. But I think at the end of the day, is it a good fit with your personality? Are you a public school guy? Are you a private school guy? I mean, those are definitely a lot of differences as well. What type of control you're going to have for summer camps, feeder teams, running tournaments, all those type of things that you want to do to build your program. And how your budgets look. Are they going to allow you to spend money to get new uniforms, to get the supplies that you need, to get a new shooting machine, to get all the things that you want to build for your program? Every coach wants to give their players the best. And I think when you have that understanding with the administration that, hey, these are things I want to get done, I think it's definitely best to get it all out there earlier. And alumni support, donor support, all those things that are going to come into play as you take over your own program, for sure. And I'd say the other thing I think it's important internally is to kind of get a good understanding of what is the school's perspective on multi-sport athletes. Our school is good about sharing athletes across sports. Do coaches work together, or are we working in silos where if a guy plays this sport, he's untouchable. He's not coming out for basketball. He can't do baseball. He can't. Those are things you want to understand too as you look around the school and kind of what your talent could be. I think I've been very fortunate to work with most head coaches that have been great about sharing talent and student athletes, and kind of working with schedules across summers and falls and everything in terms of basketball. But I think those are all really big questions that you got to research a little bit more than I certainly did when I became a head coach.
All right, so let's build on that a little bit. The networking and making connections, right? You mentioned earlier that a lot of times now it's maybe not what you know or who you know, trying to get your foot in the door. People that are in the education and coaching world know that a lot of times there's dozens, if not hundreds of applicants, maybe for a teaching position or a coaching position, whatever it may be. So I guess some tips, some things you've done, to be more effective, making those connections, networking, not only to help you build basketball knowledge, right? But, we talked about young coaches. You're a young coach, maybe looking to move your way up and eventually be a head coach or looking for that position. How can coaches go about that to be effective and keep those connections and network?
Yeah, it's such an important part of coaching, and coaching is a fraternity. It's it's a brotherhood. It's a sisterhood. There's no question. And I think what I've learned, it's a big circle. I mean, you never know when you're going to cross paths with another coach that you met. And we referenced scouting a couple of times already, but I would say some of the best scouting reports I've ever been able to put together was because of other coaches that I had befriended or gotten to know or worked with a little bit that trusted me enough to say, hey, give me a call. Let's break it down. Let's talk through it. And I've learned so much from other coaches that might have been in a conference or might have known a state playoff opponent a lot better than we did, that just took hours out of their time. I remember, I had met a coach along the way, and he knew a friend of his friend lived out in Plano. And I remember leaving Gordon Tech in the morning and driving to Plano High School to pick up tapes back then. And that never would have happened unless I had not followed up with a guy that I had met at a coaching clinic. And one thing led to another. And, here I am in the middle of Plano, Illinois, and picking up tapes from a guy I literally had never seen before. And, those tapes were critical to us kind of, winning some big state playoff games at Gordon Tech for us. So I think it's, like I said, it's important to get yourself out there. But it's almost more important, after you meet somebody, it's the follow-up. And what type of follow-up? It's just a simple thing. I still hear from a lot of coaches, and I'm not even in that world of college basketball as much anymore, but some of my best friends on the planet are college basketball coaches, and they'll just check in every so often. Hey, how's your teams doing? How's the school going? It might be 2-3 times a semester. It doesn't have to be long. Everybody's busy, but just to know you're thinking about people. Or, I see a lot of my coaching buddies have good wins. It's a quick text at 11 o'clock at night. Hey man, saw the score. That's unbelievable. Great job. Keep it rolling. I think as you build your relationships in this coaching fraternity, it's always going to pay off. And you never know how. And I'd say on the flip side as well too, we're all very competitive people. We all want to win, and sometimes you have rivals, you have opponents, but you just gotta draw the line, because like you said, sometimes temptation may take you to say the wrong thing or act out in the wrong way against a coach, or accuse somebody of something. But the world is too small in Chicago basketball. Everybody knows somebody, and I think people are always surprised with people that I know from my high school days, or my college days, whatever. And but I think the most successful coaches are the ones that you could talk to anybody about, and they're always say, hey man, that guy is just he's a great person. He's always willing to share. I don't even know him. He helped me out one time. So I think if you think of it just being a really good person, and staying in touch with people and being grateful when people do help you, I think that's awesome, because I'll tell us anybody, some of the best coaching anywhere in this country lives right here in Chicagoland area. I mean, you could take the top men's and women's coaches in our state, and you could staff Division I programs all over the country with our high school coaches. I have no doubt about that. The X's and O's, the relationships, the strategies, the changing landscape, what I see out here in Chicagoland basketball, the college and high school level, we are blessed to live in the area with some of the greatest coaches you'll ever find. So, but you got to go out and meet those people and watch them and kind of learn from them. So take advantage of opportunities. You get to meet coaches and stay in touch. I think is the biggest thing for me.
So one thing that is a big passion of mine is marketing my own program. So for you, in a 2022 world, obviously social media, I'm sure you're going to discuss in this answer, but what are some ways high school programs, boys, girls, whoever, can better sell themselves in 2022?
Yeah, that's a great question, Coach. And I think, it is difficult sometimes to promote your own program. I know that comes up a lot with coaches, but I think if you look at it as just you're trying to have some fun with it. I think on the social media side, I mean, if you're not doing anything to promote your program, people will notice that as well. I think whether or not you have time to do it as a head coach, there's certainly a young staff member somewhere that would love to be responsible to run a Twitter account or a Instagram page, just to kind of give the outside world a glimpse into what is Resurrection basketball, what is Benedictine basketball, what is Notre Dame basketball all about. That's where you kind of see the fun side of it too. I always love following coaches out there that are showing pictures of different things you might not see, or maybe there's a video of a pregame walkthrough or a pregame meal or a celebration in the locker room after a big win, or film sessions. That kind of gives parents and maybe future student athletes a glimpse into what your program is all about. And if you're not selling your program, somebody else is selling their program. Believe me. And I think that's an important part of it. You want to be kind of the, I think of myself a little bit at work with my new job as president. It's kind of like a symphony orchestra conductor. There's so many different things I'm conducting all day, and I'm trying to, not forget about things. And because, once you forget about one thing, things may go off the racks a little bit. But I think as the head coach, ultimately, you need to build the program in your image. You need to put that out there a little bit so people can really understand what is the foundation of your program. Why would a young man or a young woman want to play in my program? Let's give them a little glimpse. It's not just the wins and losses. I mean, everybody wants to put the wins out there. I get that, but it's the summer, it's the volunteer work, it's everything it's your Christmas party, it's everything that you guys do as coaches. Let's give people a glimpse into it. It's a great way to, and I think for your players, they want to see that as well. I mean, they a lot of your best players, they want to be college players, and anything you can do, I think it's our responsibility as coaches. Certainly it's something I've taken very seriously. We've been very fortunate everywhere I've been to have a lot of guys go play college ball out of the high school world. But our job, we want to promote our own players too. They chose to give their 4 years to play for you and your program. I think it's on us as coaches to do everything we can to make sure they have the best possible experience. And when we can promote our own student athletes, let's do it. Let's give them a support boost out there. Let's help them through their social media navigation, both good and bad. I think we spend a lot of time at Notre Dame just making sure that guys understand how to represent themselves on their own social media, because I know as a college coach, the perspective I can bring is, if I see something I don't like on one of our guys' social media, I'm going to tell them right away, because that can turn off any college recruiter in a millisecond. So be proud of your program, support it, have fun with it. I think that's what it's all about. Show people, if somebody was to just log on to your Twitter account once, what would their takeaway be from your program? What would they think about sending their son or daughter there? They may not know you at all, but that's going to be the front steps, I guess, into your program is your social media account there.
All right, so let's go our halftime adjustments. We're gonna get a little basketball strategy related. I wanted to circle back. You mentioned something that I really like in scouting. You said we're always trying to take something away, right? But what can we do on our own to take advantage of what we do well and our players? So when you were looking at those things, right? Was it more team strategy related, individual people tendencies that you could take advantage of something on your own team's end, as opposed to taking away something from somebody else? How did you kind of pick out those details to where something that you guys do as a team could take advantage and be successful in any individual game?
Yeah, I think it starts with the some of the individual tendencies that we would pick up on. And this is a blanket statement for sure, but in the high school world, I mean, in many the opponents that we would prepare for, I mean, it's usually one or two guys that are doing most of the scoring. At the high school world, you don't usually see a lot of high school teams have 3, 4 kind of go-to options offensively. So if we knew obviously who our top 1 or 2 scorers are on the other team, we knew how we could take some things away from them. But again, on the flip side, we knew offensively, all right, when we get certain matchups, or when some of their weaker defenders are going to match up with some of our guys, like this is what we're going to go to right away. This is the backdoor special that's going to happen right away. This is the out of bounds play. We're going to line up in a certain way to get that one guy on our matchup that we like. So, part of that is you have to have a team that kind of understands that a little bit when we talk about scouting, but we want to definitely find some individual characteristics of things that we might be able to take advantage of, from our opponents in terms of, hey, if we get this matchup in a ball screen, if we see them do this coverage, like it's over. This is what we're going to right away. So it was not always a fail-proof system, but some of those things it helped us. We knew who we could pressure full court. if they had a backup come in that was not a great ball handler, like we knew we were going, to a more of a full court trapping type of defense right away, or, things like that, as a coaching staff, like we knew all these things. We couldn't give the players all that information. It's just too much to absorb. But, we started at the individual, and then certainly on the team perspective. I mean, in high school, again, I talked to the unbelievable, coaches that we have in this area. Every night, you're not just going to see a half court man-to-man offense, a half court man-to-man defense. I mean, you have to prepare for every possible scenario. And, you may only have seen a team run a box and one or a triangle and two, one or two times, but it's in their back pocket. Hey, if they do this, we need to be ready to go here. And that's against any team, maybe not necessarily just individual matchups, but every coach has a long laundry list of things they want to be prepared for, and certain things come out, and I think in scouting that you think you can take advantage of. And I think back to our team at Notre Dame, right before COVID hit, we were 29-5, and we were just rolling people, and we were a little bit different. We had three of the best players in school history, and unbelievable starting, probably 6, 7, 8 guys, and it really didn't matter as much when we had talent like that, because we saw everything every night. We saw triangle and twos, box and ones, full court 1-3-1s. But our guys, they were good enough. They put the time and effort in enough to it didn't rattle us, because we knew we had prepared more than our opponent. We knew what we were going to see. Whatever they threw at us, we would be ready to react. So I think with your team, it can't be a freak out on the sideline. It can't be a freak out with your players that they're seeing something maybe you didn't prepare for as well. It's kind of the cycle of the basketball season. At some point in the year, you're going to see most things. You just got to be ready.
I even look at little things like that. I talk with John about this. I talk with other coaches, like at least at the high school level, even at the college level, how many teams consistently enter to the right side, right? Most players are right-handed. They enter to the right. So by just a simple thing of, hey, we're going to just force them to enter to the left, it kind of jumbles teams up at times, right? Like they don't necessarily run. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done the research on it. I'm probably not smart enough to do the study on it, but I would bet even in practice, right? You look at teams and the girl or the guy's going to enter to the right, and just throwing that kind of stuff up, to me, kind of goose up the flow of it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we saw that a couple of years ago when I was newer at Notre Dame. We were at a Christmas tournament, and every time we brought the ball down the right side of the court, our first pass to enter, they trap us right away. And it became like, every single possession became a scramble because we couldn't get into what we wanted to do. So guess what we decided to do? Well, if it's breaking us down like this, we're going to start doing the same thing to opponents. And that kind of became a staple of our program to, like I said, you got one or two guys that are going to handle the ball for the most part on most teams. You take them out on that first touch, there's a quick double, you might have spent all week walking through your sets, but excuse me, it doesn't matter anymore. But we just took them away. So I think that is a great point, Coach.
All right, so I wanted to kind of go back to your time as an assistant coach, whether it was high school, college, and then even your point of view as a head coach, right? For assistants, kind of carving out their role, right? For me, I know I kind of like you, carved out my role as scouting, right? When I was a freshman B coach, a freshman A coach, sophomore, helping out the head coach that way. So, how do coaches kind of go about carving out their role with, I think it's important to use what you're good at right then, right? And you're obviously learning to be a better coach along the way. And then presenting your ideas to your head coach, right? I think it's a little bit easier today with the technology, as you mentioned, right? You can have film to back it up. You can have, even at high school, you can have pretty much any number you want, right? But how did you go about that, or how do you think assistant coaches should, one, carve out that role and then present their ideas to the head coach?
Yeah, I think it's a critical thing for assistant coaches to, obviously head coaches know that a lot of young assistant coaches, they're not supposed to know everything. They don't know everything yet. But as an assistant coach, I think you gotta to start with what you're good at and kind of build from there. And, for me, when I jumped into the college world, I didn't have a ton of experience as a coach, sitting on a bench, but what I had to kind of figure out, and what I did figure out, was player development is something that every head coach needs from his assistant coaches. And player development is a multifaceted thing. It's obviously taking guys on the court and be able to put them through a high level workout to get them better, but it's just the player relationships. I think that's where an assistant coach is invaluable to a head coach, because the real relationships on a team have to, they're going to start with the assistant coaches. Players are going to talk to the assistants a lot more than they will the head coach. That's just the reality. So, you are always representing your head coach in everything that you do. And I think loyalty is probably the biggest thing I would tell any assistant coach. You are there to make your head coach better. You're there to help your head coach be successful. And, you're hopefully going to have a great relationship with your head coach, that your head coach is going to take your development personally by giving you opportunities that you will earn. But again, player development, I think that was a big thing for me. And my background is a little bit more probably untraditional for a lot of coaches, because I came in with a business degree and some computer skills that I was fortunate that I didn't know how they translate, but they were really important at a small Division II school at Lewis at the time. I basically took over the marketing of the program as a graduate assistant coach there. I ran all the academics. I ran study halls. I had tutoring sessions. I did a lot of things as a basketball coach that had nothing to do with the ball. It was a lot of behind the scenes things. Again, I mentioned the relationships on campus. Like, I was a guy that could call the mailroom and get something done within 5 seconds. That other coach was like, how'd you do that? I'm like, well, I had lunch with a guy the other day, and he's my buddy. Like, we're here on campus all the time together, and those type of things. I didn't know that would be such a critical role, but running the marketing of the program back then, we had a Midnight Madness. We had a lot of cool things at the time that were kind of newer. That my boss Jim Weitzel said, "Shay, you're running with these things." He didn't want to know about it. He just said, work in the background and basically get things done. So I was always swimming, man. I was trying to figure things out on the fly because I had come out of a computer consulting background. A lot of this was new to me, but through some trial and error, we got it done. And then I think as I kind of figured some of those things out with the technology, and I think the reason I had job security is because when we went to a hotel on a road trip back then, we used to leave on Wednesdays. We get back at Saturdays at like midnight. They were long trips. We were packing everything. We were packing VCRs. We were packing, hundreds of wires and cables and, screwdrivers to try and jimmy hotel TVs so we could use them. I mean, we didn't have anything. We didn't have a laptop computer back then. So my role is, as soon as we walked into a hotel, like, I had 3 managers and myself trying to, get our head coach's TV set up so he could watch double-decker VCR tape. And because I could do that, I was invaluable to our staff. And if I couldn't figure it out, we had maintenance up there. We were getting it done. So I think trying to find your roles to make your head coach and your team successful, and then you build on that. So from all these things, then I got into scouting. I was able to get those opportunities and matchups and film study, and that through those film studies and driving around the Midwest, watching all these games, my education in basketball, it was like getting an MBA every single day. I was a coach in college. I couldn't believe this is all we did all day long: basketball, morning, noon, night. And I lived on campus at Lewis back then. I mean, coaches would go home to their families. I would stay. I mean, I lived there. So it became a 24/7 thing. So when something was needed in the middle of the night, I got the call. When a guy wanted to shoot around at 6 in the morning, I got the call. I just, I think the more you show up, the luckier you get, a lot of people say. And I think that's a good motto for young assistant coaches. If you're there, you're going to get lucky. Coach is going to pull you in and say, "Hey, come out here. I got an idea. Let's go out on the floor and let's walk through some things." And I think that's that was a great thing that Coach Weitzel always did. And if I was brave enough and felt strong enough that I had a good idea for something offensively or defensively, he'd always say, "Hey guys, let's go out to the floor." And we'd go out there, and it'd be 4 or 5 of us just, kind of jogging, walking through plays and ideas, and you had to be able to back it up. But I think as you you built your confidence and you had that trust that develops. I mean, that's what you're looking for as an assistant coach. You don't want to just be the quiet guy on the staff. If you feel strongly about something, you have conviction about something, bring it up. That's where the best ideas are laid. And I was very fortunate when I worked at Loyola University to work with some of the most unbelievable guys. As I look back, one of our first staffs was a guy named Mark Lovelace, who was an offensive guru who could design plays in his sleep. And then, I worked with Pat Baldwin, who, was a head coach at University Wisconsin-Milwaukee, one of Northwestern's all-time greatest defensive players. You want to learn defense? You talk to Pat Baldwin. Pat Baldwin was our best player in our program as an assistant coach when we took over. He would dominate our practices. And I learned more from watching Pat practice against our highly, skilled Division I guys than I probably did in any other way. And then, one of my dear friends, Howard Moore, was just, you talk about the life of the party. Anywhere I went with Howard Moore in this city of Chicago, he would introduce me. Everybody knew Howard Moore. And that's kind of how I kind of was very fortunate to surround myself with other great assistant coaches that took me under their wings as well. And I think that's part of it. You have to have an unbelievable chemistry and network as a group of assistants, because a lot of the work that you're going to do as assistant coaches is behind the scenes together, maybe even without your head coach. But you got to be on the same page. You got to support each other. You got to be there for each other to make sure your head coach is ready to go with the game plan. And again, your job is to make sure your program wins, and your job is to represent your head coach 24/7. So that's just, I guess, some of the advice I'd have for young assistant coaches, trying to make their mark and trying to find how they can provide value to their program.
So as we go into the last couple of questions, actually, you had kind of touched on this when you were talking about the hiring process for looking for jobs, but now in that administrative role as a president of a school, looking at your athletic programs, for you, what do you want out of your athletic programs? And then, as an admin, what are things you look to do to serve your coaches? Because as we always say, and I'm sure you would agree, the greatest leaders are the people that serve the people they work with.
Yeah, that's a great point, Coach. And I think, especially kind of coming out of the COVID years, I don't hesitate to use the word hero for our teachers, our staff, and our coaches. And I've said that to anybody that'll listen to me. I can speak for Notre Dame College Prep. The work that our coaches did during that time was heroic in so many ways. I mean, they were there for the kids when the students needed them. They didn't run from things. They were still in the gym. They were still on our fields. They were still in the weight room, even putting their own health at risk at times, I'm sure. With all the questions that we had, as I think back, it was a hard time for a lot of us as coaches. Obviously there was a lot of disappointment that we couldn't have state playoffs, and especially at Notre Dame, we were on the cusp of state championship run, and a lot of different sports, not just basketball. But I think it was our coaches and their attitudes that kind of kept the ship afloat across all schools. And I hope that gratefulness comes across from administrations to all coaches. And if it's not from somebody else's school, I'll say it again, that the coaches were there for these young men and young women when a lot of people weren't. And I think it's coaching is not all about wins and losses all the time, but the way that coaches stepped up to be there, for the mental health of our students, the physical well-being of our students. They needed those outlets. They needed those Zooms. They needed all the things that coaches were creatively putting into place. Like, that's something that'll always stick with me. The work that I saw during that time was some of the best work I've ever seen from so many coaches, because they stepped up when they needed them for sure. I got off track there, Coach. Put me back on track a little bit on this question.
No. So I was just saying, as the president now, you kind of oversee everything. So, how do you define success in your athletic programs? Obviously as the head coach, we're looking for certain things, relationships with kids, wins and losses, things like that. But, as the president overseeing kind of the whole school, what are you looking for? Not just basketball, all your athletic department.
Yeah, no, thanks for putting me back on that track there. But I think where I was going with that is, I think athletics plays such an important role to the success of any high school. I mean, it's what builds the school spirit, builds pride in the community. It, builds enrollment. It's great for fundraising. I speak from the private school angle here a little bit. That's where so much excitement happens. And I am fortunate, and I hope this comes across to my coaches, that I do come from an athletic background. That it might be rare for a lot of high school or college presidents. There's certainly people I've worked for that had no idea, what sports were necessarily all about. They had other strengths, and they're high academic guys or women for sure. But I think I can bring that perspective. But for me, like hiring, our coaching staff is critical. The only way your athletic program is going to be successful is you can hire trustworthy, high character coaches that you can trust, to be with your student athletes, to be successful, to represent your school in the way that you want your school represented. They got to take care of your students mentally, physically, as emotionally, as I talked about. But our coaches have a tremendous responsibility. I know all that comes with a coach's job. It's multifaceted, but I also want to make sure that coaches know at Notre Dame, for example, I want this to be a destination that they can be successful at. I know we talk about the players all the time, but I want coaches to find that satisfaction. I mean, they've dedicated their life to be great teachers, be great counselors. I want them to find that satisfaction at Notre Dame. And I think in my role as president, I think the things that I try to do and the things that I can do is just, to work with our athletic director, work with our head coaches, to make sure that we have every possible resource that they need to be successful. I want them to know that if there's something that they need or their program needs, like, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. I can't promise everything, but we're going to do everything we can to have the best technology. We're going to have the best facilities. We're going to keep building. We put a ton of money into our baseball field the last couple months here. We're renovating that. We're putting a brand new athletic turf field out, at our outside stadium for soccer, lacrosse, and football at Notre Dame next spring. I mean, we got to keep looking forward, and that's part of my job. I got to drive the long-term vision, but on the short-term vision, I want our coaches to know that, I'm going to be at the games. I think that's one of the best things I can do. It kills me sometimes I can't be on the sideline coaching anymore, but I want to be there to help. Whether it's a sport I'm very proficient in, or maybe it's a sport I don't know as well, but at least those coaches know, hey, what'd you see, coach, or what'd you think? I'm happy to lend my advice. I've had a lot of coaches say, can you come and speak to our team about X, Y, or Z? And I'm happy to. Student athletes, and to be a resource for every single coach at our school. And, that goes for coaches that I've worked with at other schools, in the past as well. I think it's a great sign at Notre Dame in particular that we have 9 alums that are head coaches. You don't find that very often. And we probably have 40 plus assistant coaches across all our programs that are alumni as well. When we have our opening coaches meeting at the beginning of the year, guys introduce themselves. They'll say, what class they are. I mean, it's uncanny how many guys have come back to give back to their alma mater as head coaches and assistant coaches. And to me, that gives a huge level of confidence. I know we're doing the right things when guys come back. When you see staffs that have alums back on them, they had great experiences and they want to give back to the next generation of students. And I think that's a huge advantage. And I kind of came up through the enrollment world. So I've seen how high schools work from the ground floor. I know all the different crossover, and I think as president, I can kind of link some, when there are challenges across different sports, or there are facility challenges, or sharing with student athletes across different sports. I've been through a lot of those situations. So anytime I can help advise and be there for our guys, I try and do that. But I want to keep it fun. I want to win, and I want to be competitive. And that's what Notre Dame's all about. I mean, we have very hardworking young men that want to be great. They want to go play college sports. I mean, we're averaging about 25 guys a year to go play a college sport. Like, that doesn't happen in most places. That's an unbelievable number, but that only happens because of the total landscape of our athletic department. We've built an athletic department that's built to succeed. We have great people that run it. We have great people that support it, and the coaches, they're driving it. So I couldn't be more grateful for our coaches at Notre Dame.
All right, so we want to transition here to our last two segments. First one's 30-second timeout. You're down your dance floor, something that's important to you. It could be family, what you got going on at the school, something you're passionate about, you want your listeners to know more about. Any topic you wanna discuss. It's all you.
All right, quick 30 seconds. I was kind of thinking about this, and a guy asked me the other day about some of our alumni players, and it kind of got me thinking. And I said, you know what? It is a pretty incredible story to tell at Notre Dame. I stay in touch with most of our former players in the basketball side, but as I think back to what's happened, we're on the cusp of something really special at Notre Dame. We currently stand at 999 career wins for our school. Through some great reporting by my buddy Dion at Journal and Topics, we pieced a lot of things together, and I started thinking more about the history of our program, and the names and of players that have come through this program to get to 999 wins. So that's something we're going to be celebrating very soon, our 1,000th win as a school. A lot of history back, to the days of Jim Les, obviously NBA player, and guys that I've been fortunate to be around since I've been there, with Rodney Pryor to Georgetown, going to NBA and the G League, and Matt Mooney at Texas Tech, and NBA and overseas, and Joe Mooney and Jamero Wilson and Anthony DeVonzo, Lucas Simon, Matt Stritzel, all the guys, recently Anthony Sales, Louis Lesman, Troy D'Amico, all these guys, Jason Bergstrom, that have gone on to play college basketball. It's an incredible story to tell, and I'm big on basketball history. And as I kind of dove into this last couple of weeks, it's been a really cool kind of memory lane to go down the path of, man, I've been a part of a lot of those wins the last 11 years, but the history is just incredible. And it's something I'd encourage any high school to, don't forget your history, your former players, highlight them, bring back some of those great teams. Don't let that history sit. There's great stories to tell, and it's a great way to kind of reconnect with your alumni.
All right, so now as Todd sometimes will joke, sometimes the wheels stay on the car during this segment, sometimes they fall off, but that's all right. So this is quick hitters. This is just fun questions, sometimes basketball related, sometimes not. So the first one we got for you is your favorite family holiday tradition.
Yeah, well, my favorite family holiday tradition is going to start here in about an hour, Coach. We take the family, we go down to the Museum of Science and Industry. We go to see the trees around the world. We take a fun day there to just kind of be together as a family of five. I have three younger kids, my wife and I. So we'll be downtown Chicago for a day of Christmas cheer, and we'll go to our favorite restaurant, Tuscany, down in the Little Italy area. And I don't know how that kind of became our thing, but it's became our official family Christmas kickoff. So we'll be there today, enjoying a rare Sunday of kind of inactivity on the basketball and sports side, and with my own children today. So we'll do that, and then next couple of weeks, just a lot of family time around the holidays. And it's a great time as well. As a high school coach and administrator, that's when you see a lot of your former players come back, and it's always a great thing for me. I love the Christmas tournaments, man. I can't get enough of the high school hoops tournaments. Even if my team's not in the race, man, I could sit there for 8 hours and just watch ball. It's fantastic.
All right. Best Christmas gift you got as a kid, like your favorite. You're like, oh, this is the goods.
Yeah, well, that's a easy memory for me. I got the Hulkamania Hulk Hogan workout set when I think I was 8 or 9 years old.
So,
You got the headband, you got the dumbbells, the hand grippers, man. That was that chant on in the morning. You're ready to go.
that's awesome.
All right, so we
get the vitamins with it too.
Those are on the side. They did not come with the package, but the Flintstone vitamins were part of it.
I feel like this is the third wrestling reference, Todd, that we've had in the last 3 episodes.
So. Yeah, we're on a wrestling kick.
We are.
Let's go. That'd be your next secret podcast.
All right, so we got your holiday tournament memory.
Coach, you broke up there. Say it one more time.
Got that. We got your favorite holiday tournament memory.
Favorite holiday tournament memory. I'll give you two. In terms of individual performances, we had a young man named Joe Mooney who was one of the best guards in Notre Dame history, and I'll never forget out at the Wheeling tournament. Something was going on with Joe. I could tell in warmups he was just so laser focused in, and he went out and dropped 36 of our, I think, 46 points that day. I think we played Prospect, and it's probably the best one game performance I had ever seen in a tournament setting. Just lasering, 3-point shots from everywhere. I mean, it was unbelievable performance. And in terms of just tournament memories, I referenced that our great team we had in 1920, probably the most high level Christmas tournament game I'd ever seen and been part of was our championship game. We beat Glenbrook South, who, unbelievable program, great coach, was just, I mean, it was a battle of the Titans for one night, and the place was jam packed. I mean, the Wheeling atmosphere is great. We love going there every year for the tournament, and obviously we won the tournament a lot during the 2010 to 2020 era, and it just kind of became a tradition that championship games usually starts at 9:00 at night. The gym is packed, and we had that team with Sales, D'Amico, and Lesman. It's just the dunks that were happening, the high level shots, the back and forth, the defensive game plans, the scouting that went into that one. That was the ultimate chess match, and a game I'll never forget. It came right down to the wire. We ended up getting them late, but on a pretty awesome fast break alley dunk. I see that in my head all the time, and just a really special night over the holidays.
All right, so you just mentioned your team's best single performance you saw. What about an opponent? I'm going to tweak this one a little bit. An opponent's best performance by an opponent you ever saw.
Well, I'll say that I'm going to bring up a name, and you might remember because you don't see it. Well, a couple things. When I was in high school, I went to Weber High School, and back then the Weber Gordon Tech rivalry was very similar to probably Notre Dame St. Pat's type of rivalry of today. And my guy was Tommy Kleinschmidt. Watching Tommy just dominate games was unbelievable. Even as a Weber guy, as a kid growing up, Tommy had some of the best shooting performance I had ever seen. We all wanted to be like Tom when we were practicing and shooting. Just unbelievable. I mean, I think he set the bar for me in terms of big game, big atmosphere player. I mean, I couldn't get enough of going to Friday night games at Weber to see all the different guys. And one of the best guys I had ever seen at Weber High School is a guard named Javon Hobbs, who played at UIC. And Javon at Weber, I mean, I can't tell you how many big game, big shots this kid hit. I was a freshman, he was a senior, and he just, every game we won the Catholic League championship, he would just hit shot after shot after shot. And we all wanted to be like Javon Hobbs at Weber High School. And Javon beat Leo on the last second shot at Weber's gym, which was just one of the best memories I'll ever have as a freshman in high school. So.
All right, so you've played and coached in some amazing old, new, etc. gyms. So I actually tweaked it, and I wanted to ask you this question because as a basketball historian, I thought you'd have some fun with this one. Your favorite, so not Notre Dame currently, but your favorite high school gym to be in, to be around, just that has an overall great atmosphere, etc.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I referenced Weber High School as gym. If you ever had a chance, you guys ever through Weber High School back in the day at all?
So I have been in Weber High School since it closed. I was never in it in current.
Yeah. Well, it was just such a great loud gym, and we had unbelievable student sections back then. That's kind of where I developed my love for being part of student sections and developing them as coaches as well. But the hardwood on Lockwood is probably the best gym, and I've been there a few times since the school closed as well. I just the ghosts, I can hear them in that gym anytime in there. Certainly, Gordon Tech's old gym with the scoreboard. I mean, that's a classic. I had 4 great years as a head coach at Gordon Tech. A lot of great wins, a lot of great memories in that gym. I think you kind of get that old school feel a little bit in there. I think any gym that is not your traditional bleachers on 2 sides going up. I mean, that's everywhere we go in the suburbs now, it seems to be the type of gyms that you see there. But like Leo High School's gym, my guys at Leo, like that's an experience. If you haven't played at Leo, man, try and get over there and watch a game. Their gym just rocks. It's an unbelievable small gym. You're walking upstairs to get upstairs to the gym. There's so much character in a gym like that as well. So those would probably be the top ones that come to mind. When I played too, De La Salle's old gym was rocking. I mean, that just had that feel to it as well. I mean, those were some of the loudest places I had ever played in for sure, and watched. I was fortunate to watch many great games in the old Chicago Catholic League gymnasiums as well. But it kind of always brings me back to I think a lot of the Chicago Catholic League gyms would probably be my favorite ones, guys.
All right, last one. Favorite thing about Illinois high school basketball?
Favorite thing about Illinois basketball, I'll double back down on I think the quality of our coaches. I think I know coaching has not been easy, but I think it's high level, man. It's a great part of being a high school coach in the East Suburban Catholic or Chicago Catholic League. I can speak to is just the level of coaching, the level of preparation that needs to go into every single game is what makes you better as a coach. I mean, iron sharpens iron. I think that can be very easily said with the level of coaching we have at the college levels and all of our staffs, our high school, both men's and women's, boys and girls across the state. I put Illinois up against anybody, and I think our student athletes are very lucky to have the high level of coaching that you have. And Chicago basketball, I'm born and bred here in Chicago, CPS, Chicago Catholic League, suburban ball. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's a great time of the year now. I hope people can get out and watch as many games as they can, and kind of support high school hoops, support your coaches in the area for sure. And the rivalries, the pageantry of it all, man, it's the history of Chicago basketball is second to none. So very fortunate to have a lot of great relationships with coaches across the state here, and been very fortunate to coach many great players and give them that type of Chicagoland basketball experience that I love.
Well, for all of our listeners, if you didn't like Illinois high school basketball before this, I think after the passion has now fallen out of Coach Boyle, I think you're now a little juiced up. I'm a little juiced up. So, Coach, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on, and we look forward to working with you down the line as well.
I appreciate it, guys, man. Thanks for the opportunity. This was a great way to start the day, and always enjoy talking hoops, and wish you guys the best with your programs as well. You guys are doing an awesome job, and I'm very fortunate I found your podcast. I've been going through them all, and I learned a ton every time I listen in, and it's been great to network with a couple of people I've heard on your podcast, and I'm here if you guys ever need anything.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in concert with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. Please remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you may listen. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout and subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.